Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever. I don't know, good night, maybe, if you're in the APAC region. But hi, everyone. I'm Anuhya. I am a Stellar developer, development foundation, the Stellar Development Foundation's developer advocate. And I'm so excited to be here once again, back with Soroban Talks. We're kind of making this into a series, maybe. I don't know yet. Probably. I won't claim it too soon. But this week, I have a very special guest, and his name is Chris. Hi, Chris. How are you?
Hi.
Hello. So we are basically, I just let everyone know we're now live. So we're going to see a couple more people rolling in as we get started. But in the meantime, Chris, you want to tell me about yourself? Who are you? What do you do? I guess, yeah, we'll start from there.
Yeah, so who am I? I'm Chris. So maybe most of you know me as Soniso. In Discord, my nickname is Soniso. And yes, I'm a computer scientist, a programmer, developer, however you want to call it.
Man of many trades, huh? So you
So
can do all the CS stuff, is what you're telling me.
yeah, so because I started really early, so middle of the 90s, I studied computer science, and then I worked, first I worked as a programmer, developer, and I did a lot of stuff. So working also as a designer for software and architect, like also product manager, program manager, all kinds of things in the IT area. And yes, as I started so early, I also worked a lot in this domain. Let's say like this. I started with early with this time when new economy started, how they called it, and then the next one was for me very interesting was the development of mobile phone applications. I started
You've
with
been around for a while then.
yes.
Got it. Yes, please.
Yes, and so this was very cool. At this time, it was the middle of I don't know 2007 or so, and Apple had the iPhone, and I wanted to develop something for it, but there was no SDKs, there was no API, there was nothing, so
Wow.
couldn't develop. So you had to hack it
Mm.
and to develop something, to jailbreak it. It was called jailbreaking.
Yep. Right. I've jailbroken my phone multiple times, and I would get my parents like passed down iPhone, and basically I would take that and jailbreak it just so I can have free Spotify, because I refuse to pay for Spotify. So I totally, yes, jailbreaking. That brings back some memories.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. So and then Apple came up with the SDKs, with the iOS SDK, and it was so nice. You could develop everything, and you can do so much more.
Right.
And yes, and then the next area began with the blockchain, and this was also something I liked a lot. And so I got into this blockchain area with Stellar
Mm.
somehow.
So I guess, was Stellar your first introduction to blockchain, or
Yes, like
if you we backtrack a little bit, like what brought you into blockchain? Like how did you end up getting to know about Stellar?
it was people were talking about it and discussing about it, and someday one friend of mine told me, "Hey, you have to look to Stellar because it's so cool. It's
Right.
so good documented." And I was curious to see how.
That is awesome. What year was that?
This was 2017 or so.
Okay, got it. Very
Um,
cool. So that was the previous full run. Yeah, got
yeah.
it, got it. Yeah, no, I'm glad that you say that because documentation is something that our team runs. So I'm sure Bree, our technical writer, is watching. I hope you see the progression of the documentation. You see that it's gotten better. We really make an effort.
Yeah, so but even then it was so much better than the other stuff,
Got
like it
it.
was so easy to understand the things, and you had these examples and
Right.
all kinds of programs, and it was very early, yes,
Right.
but comparing to the other blockchains, and so it was super nice understand it, to understand the concepts. To it was very we had this developer documentation,
Mhm.
and it was
It just
so
made
this,
sense.
so
People actually documented what blockchain
and
meant, and
this I liked very lot. So.
right.
And I liked also this approach that to be developer proactive, so
Hmm.
to give developers the opportunity to understand the stuff easily,
Right.
and to so that they can easily start programming, easily start trying things, and so this was for me very nice, and therefore I started with playing around with Stellar, and because
Right.
I developed a lot of stuff with iOS. So I tried it with my Xcode with an iPhone device,
Hmm.
and I wanted to connect to the blockchain, and I found out how to do it, and send stuff there, send transactions there,
Right.
query the network, and so on. And I thought, okay, it was a lot of work to find out everything.
Hmm.
So I want to help others to get even faster into it,
Right.
and then I started to build this iOS SDK
Right.
first.
For Stellar. I mean, that was one of your first SDKs I think you built, right? And you built many more after.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
So I started with this iOS SDK, and there was at that time there were build challenges in
Mm.
for Stellar. So it was the
Right.
build
This is
challenge.
pre-SCF,
Yeah,
basically, before
yes,
SCF even existed. Yeah.
it was some successor of SCF.
Right.
And everyone could submit something, so
Mhm.
interesting ideas, and it was SCF number 6, I
Okay.
guess. And this SCF was like there were a lot of submissions. So before SCF 5 were like, I don't know, like 40 or 50 or
Mhm.
so, and then SCF 6 were 350 or so submissions. So there were a lot of submissions, good
Right.
things. And I think it was also the first time when for the Stellar team it was hard to find out, okay, which are the projects that are really good and so. And
Right.
I submitted the SDK to this build challenge, and I won the first prize in this challenge. And this, of course, it motivated me a lot.
Yeah. So I
And
guess you're telling me that basically SEF was one of your biggest like entry points
yeah.
into like making you stay in the Stellar ecosystem essentially and keep building these awesome SDKs that you
Yes, and also
correct.
for
Yeah.
SDKs, right?
Right.
Because before I used a lot of SDKs.
Mhm.
Okay, I made some small things like small SDKs internally for the developers of my team or so that they can reuse it. But this was only within my company or so, or within the client's company, because I worked a long time as a freelancer,
Got it.
helping big companies to achieve their goals with their projects.
Right.
And yeah, I built smaller libraries or smaller SDKs, but they were only internally.
Right.
And this was the first time I built an SDK which was open source and which was to help. The intention or the goal was to help many people with it. So
Right.
and the Stellar SDK was, let's say, a three-win situation. Win, because it was a win for me, because
Uh-huh.
I was learning a lot more about Stellar. So you have to find out everything.
Right.
So and it helps developers to access Stellar easily, to access the Stellar blockchain easily, and
Mhm.
they don't have to think of all these things that that I was thinking about, and they
Right.
can just use it. And also it helps Stellar because more developers come to Stellar because
Exactly.
yeah.
Right. So I guess if we take a pause here, Chris, I'm curious if anyone who doesn't know what an SDK is, how would you describe an SDK?
So basically, an SDK is a suite of tools for developers that help them to access a system or a program or something like. But it contains components that are reused. Like if you are developing something and you want to connect to the Stellar blockchain, you have to write some code, and the other guy who wants to do the same thing has also to write the same code again. And so we can couple for a specific platform. So let's say for iOS, for example, these things that are reused and used by all developers into one package. And this package, this library, can then be installed by the developers, and they can use the functions which are already implemented, and also test it, because many developers are working with it, so they can be relatively sure that the stuff is working. Like and this is better than implementing it only for you, because then you don't really know. Okay, you can make all these tests, which is even more work, and then but it gives you more confidence if you have something that is used by many developers, and of course you can it's not so time intensive.
It's basically like a extremely important developer toolkit, right? It's allowing more developers, like, for example, let's talk about Soroban, right? It's like Soroban is known as this Rust-heavy language, or Rust-heavy smart contract platform. And honestly, to me, I was like, oh no, I don't know Rust. I only know Python. And when Overcat dropped like a Python SDK, I was like, oh my God, this is great. And then you dropped the assembly script SDK. I was like, wait, this is... So essentially, it's basically allowing developers who don't know that main language, allowing them to utilize the technology still, and creating that bridge between point A to point B, and saying, hey, you don't know a language? Guess what? We have this SDK, which is the cool thing about Stellar, right? Which is like, hey, you don't know like a particular language. Well, actually, Stellar offers iOS SDKs, Flutter SDKs that are all like they're maintained by you, correct?
Yes. So this is very good, and it is super that Stellar gives a developer the possibility to do this, like to give the community the chance to bring up things into the Stellar ecosystem. So to help other developers also with this, and also I think also for the Stellar Development Foundation, it's nice because they can you can see what happens in the ecosystem. You can see what problems people have. You can see where the bugs are. Therefore I said it's a win-win situation for developers, for Stellar, and for me. So definitely motivated, and also, like, I want this Stellar build challenge, and with this it was not finished, like, because Stellar, the Stellar Development Foundation always kept in touch with me. We worked on extending this SDK, on let's say maintaining this SDK, and we are always somehow communicating, working together, and development this, and this was something new for me, because in the past, when for example I developed iOS applications, and I was very early in developing these iOS applications, and at the beginning it was like Apple wanted to support me however possible, and so but then after a year or so, after half a year or so, they just had so much developers, and they wanted only big companies and stuff like this, and they were not interested anymore. But with the Stellar, we are always talking with Discord, with other platforms, and it's always keeping
there's some way to communicate with Stellar always, I feel like, with the foundation.
I feel that it is super for developers. So
thank you. That makes me really happy. That's what the job of the developer relations team is to do, is to maintain these relationships. And like, I think one thing I do want to highlight here is like, this was fully motivated by you, right? To submit to that challenge. I don't think Stellar ever approached you and was like, hey, you can build an SDK. Do you like iOS? No, right? Yeah. And so what made you want it? I guess it goes back to the fact that you just wanted to make a win-win situation. And it came out of you being like, I wish I had an iOS SDK. And I guess you started to build one. Is that correct? Or how did that go?
Yes, it was like this. So because when you're working so much time in this industry, so
Right.
you are also using work from other people, like
Mhm.
they put it in the SDKs and share these SDKs. So I use so many SDKs,
Uh-huh.
and I was so happy to have them, like because.
Right.
And I thought, okay, now I have to give back something, like
Uh-huh.
also, and I also like to know, okay, that people are using my work as a platform to
Right.
build new things and to see, okay, what kind of things are they building with this, and it's a nice feeling to see this, and
Right.
so I said, okay, I'm going to implement this SDK to give back a little bit and also to help people, and
Right.
yes.
Yeah, and I think that's the beauty of open source and decentralization, really, right? It's like you're using so many of these tools. For example, I used to work at a company called MLH Major League Hacking, where we were essentially working to contribute to the React SDK, or sorry, not SDK, React itself and Homebrew. And I was like, whoa, this is a tool I use every single day. And I'm finally like making a small change, and it just made me so happy to do that. And I was like, wow, this is kind of big deal, because someone out there is probably using the work I have created, and we can also see if they are using it. And to see that, and it's like, whoa, okay, this person's using like my iOS SDK right now to build this application. It's like, aha, I did something. It's like giving back to that
Yes, yes.
feeling. And then the idea of decentralization, where it's like, hey, I want to do something, so I'm contributing. Someone else can do it. Anyone can do it. Anyone can add on to it.
Yeah.
So in a more I don't know if the right word is a philanthropic manner, but in a more full circle manner, it's like I've
Yeah,
done
it's a
this, so
win-win-win situation. So,
exactly
and
right.
then when you know that, for example, then this guys from Lobster, which is
Mhm.
this big wallet from Stellar, they said, hey, we are using your SDK, and so okay, there are a lot of users on it, 1 million users or so using it. So
Right.
as an end
Wow.
user, so wow, that's cool. So
Yeah,
I'm
and you're supporting all 1 million of them because Lobster is using that SDK in a way, right? So
in a
no,
way,
that's
yes,
in a way, yeah.
as a part of the ecosystem, because
Right,
it's just a small piece in the whole thing.
right.
But it's I like it, and it makes me happy to contribute and to
Yeah.
be
And
part of the Stellar ecosystem. It's super nice.
right.
So
And it's all about interoperability. I think the big thing, like Stellar, yes, our grand mission is to create equitable access to the global financial system. But
yeah,
if we break that up into pieces, like one big part of it is interoperability. And I think
yeah,
your example right here is just a plain, like written out example of like, hey, somewhere out there, someone's using the work I've done, and we're all interoperating together to reach out to the end user and to actually access the mission that Stellar has put out, or Stellar is working towards, not put out. But yeah, so that is like it's truly inspiring, Chris, to hear this, because I think the developers that are listening on right now is like, hey, y'all, like if you have some idea that you're like, man, this should exist on Stellar, just please go
yeah,
build it. And if you don't want to build it, ask someone to collaborate with you. I'll
yes.
ask Chris, man. I'm sure he has time to help you out if you wanted. If anyone wants any iOS, he's an early stage developer, and he's very seasoned, very talented. So definitely like just reach out to him. And it's
And
as
there are
simple as like Discord, right? Sorry, go
yeah,
ahead.
so this Discord, also this Discord channels, and you get immediately help. So if you have any
Right.
questions, just post it in Discord. And I think the Stellar community is so friendly, so nice. So it's a big win somehow to be
Yeah.
part of it. And
There.
it's easy to get in, and it's you get help from others, and you have a super documentation,
Mhm.
and you have so many possibilities to participate also.
Right.
So like in the SCF, or now in the Sorobanatron, and
So you mentioned Sorobonathon, which is a perfect segue into this. So we have this new thing called Soroban. Chris, what are your thoughts? Tell me your generic feelings about like there's finally smart contracts on Stellar. How does that feel?
Yeah, it feels cool because it's something new. Like
Right.
this is also something that when you're an SDK developer, you have always you need to be to stay up to date because on one side the programming language evolves, and on the other side the platform like Stellar evolves.
Hmm.
So there are new features, new stuff, and you have to cover everything.
Yep.
So you have to learn a lot, and you have to combine those and to maintain the SDK. So you have to update the source code. You have to test it. You have to answer people's questions. You have to improve the documentation, and so you are always learning more and more, which is super.
Hmm.
So at least I like it very much to do
Yeah,
this.
I think maintaining an SDK is always like a constant, like it's a dynamic thing, right? Like the
Yes,
SDK has to stay updated, and
yes,
like as the application's moving, you also have to keep maintaining it.
yes,
And I
and
think Stellar supports you in that through the infrastructure grant, correct?
yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
So
That's
that sounds
super
awesome.
good because with this, I can work for maintaining the SDKs without having to think, okay, how can I
Yeah.
earn money now to,
So I
you
guess what
know.
do you do in your day-to-day job, Chris? Like what who are you outside of SDF?
So outside of SDF, I'm like a developer and or depending on contract that I have. So I'm a
Okay,
contractor,
got it.
and sometimes I'm developer, sometimes I'm a product owner or whatever.
Got it. Very cool. So
uh,
you have a whole life outside of an SDF, basically.
it got a little bit less
uh,
with Stellar because I like Stellar so much that I want to work more with Stellar, and also
mm,
there I implemented also the Flutter SDK and later the PHP SDK,
got it.
and now even if it sounds so like old school PHP SDK, but
Yeah.
it was like there was a gap, and nobody wanted to fill this gap because there was another guy, his name was Sulu Crypto, and
Uh,
he just disappeared somehow, and nobody
okay.
knew about, and the SDK was stuck. So
Okay.
nobody maintained it, and there were so many people using it and
Mm,
wanted to use it. So
right.
even if it's an older technology, but now they are also getting better and better.
Got it.
And and then I said, okay, let's fill this gap, and yes, and now it has many installs, and
Mm.
it's also used. So I did this I think last year at
Mm.
in fall or so, and it's already used I think by 2,000 people or so,
Oh, wow.
and,
Okay.
and so. So,
Wow.
so even if it's an older technology, so you
Mm.
have to first you have to learn PHP,
Right.
okay?
I was like, so I'm sure you know Justin Rice, Jay Rice on Discord and just in general. And Justin was like, yeah, like Chris maintains our PHP SDK. I was like, oh no, like this must be a intense developer maintaining a PHP SDK. That's some dedication, man. I
Yeah,
despise PHP. I used to build like WordPress sites in PHP,
yeah.
and that was like the bane of my existence. And so when someone mentions like they maintain a PHP SDK, I'm like, oh, that's a hardcore developer right there.
But you know, so what I was also thinking about is like it's an old technology, and but it is used very often.
Right.
And if you start learning it, and if you start working with it, okay, it's not perfect, but you
Mm,
find out that there's a lot of development in that area, and it got better. You know,
mm,
it's much better than earlier.
right.
So they have good concepts, and it's. But you have the impression because everybody's talking about, oh, this is old, man, what are you doing with this? But then if you
Right.
start learning it, you realize that it's not
Right.
like this.
Right.
It's okay.
Absolutely. So I guess we mentioned Soroban. Let's actually see one of your SDKs in action, if that's cool with you. You submitted to Sorobanathon the amazing assembly script SDK and submitted some Soroban examples via that. So I'd love to see that in action. I'm sure there are like our viewers here are also waiting for that. So
Yes,
whenever you have a chance, go ahead and share your screen. We'll go from there.
yes, I'm going to share my
In the
screen.
meantime, I'm going to go through the comments here. Oh, we have Expo people here, I think. Yes, we do. Oh, they're all talking about how you used to jailbreak iPhones. It was someone said, "Oh, what did I miss?" And Kanye said, "How did Chris get here, including jailbroken iPhones?" So, hey man, you got to start somewhere with iOS development, right?
Yes. So I started
Sweet.
early because I wanted to develop something for the iPhone because they had just this email app and Safari on it, but no games, no nothing. So I wanted to have some app on it, right? And then I said, okay, I will develop some game for it. And I developed dominoes and stuff like this, small games for this, but there was no SDK. So
So I guess my question is, did you start like, so one thing that as a developer advocate, I always wonder is like, how can we bring more developers into our ecosystem, right? So you mentioned you built like something as simple as like a Domino's application. Is that what brought you into building iOS applications? Is like you started with the fun things and then eventually you got very serious and then you built like real applications, correct?
Yes,
And
exactly. So,
yeah, and that's kind of our hope with Soroban is that with Sorobonathon, people are like basically just testing things out, playing around with it, and make the craziest, I don't know, make Fortnite wager pools if they wanted. And they can eventually one day we build real solutions on Soroban, you know?
yes, exactly. So
Right.
yes, and Soroban is cool. People are coming because
Yeah.
Soroban is cool. So what you have to do is, I think, to make people to make clear to people that Soroban is cool. So
Yeah, no, exactly. I think that that's our thought process behind saying, "Hey, here's $1 million. People, please build on Sorobonathon." So if anyone doesn't already know about Sorobonathon, y'all should go build on Soroban because you can earn good money for doing so. Because why not? Literally, just go play, set up FutureNet, just do something on it, write about it, and there you go. And come tell me that you did that, or you don't have to. I'll see that you did that on GitHub discussions. Also, I'm going to share it in Sorobonathon, the link here. That way, people on stream, if you don't know, you can check it out. And so, yeah, please, if you don't know about Soroban, you should learn about Soroban. And you can currently earn for learning about Soroban.
And you can use the assembly script SDK to develop.
And there is that too. And I'm going to share Chris's assembly script SDK in the chat as well. That way people can go look at what Chris is doing.
So let me know when you can see my screen so I can start.
Here you go. We can see your screen now.
Okay, so what I have here is the Sonizo GitHub page with the repositories. And here is the new assembly script Soroban SDK. And also we have here another repository, which are the assembly script Soroban examples. And this is what I committed to Sorobanatron. So you can,
there it is. Oh, the first one, yeah.
Here.
There we go.
So this is super easy. You go to the repo and you go to discussions. And here you can start a new discussion. And as you can see, there are so many nice things here. And one of them is from me. So it was the assembly script SDK, and submitted the examples that I built here in the assembly script Soroban examples repository. And this is super easy. So with this, you can easily start implementing contracts for Soroban. So the only what you have to do is you clone this repository. You go here. Can you see it? Is it
Yep, we can see it.
Should I make it bigger a bit or?
Yeah, let's do a little bit bigger. Yes, that's good.
Okay, that's too big. No, it's gone.
There. Oh, there. Yeah. This is good, Chris.
Sorry, it's too big. Okay, now.
There we go.
Okay, so what? Copy the link from there. So it's cloned. So now we have here we have here now this this examples folder, and you go into the examples folder, and now here you have a description how it works. So
you wrote a pretty detailed README. I really appreciate that. The README follows step by step.
So basically, it says that it's good to install the Soroban CLI, so which is described here on the website from Soroban. This is the Soroban CLI, and this has to be installed because with this you can test your stuff.
Yep, and it's to run your contracts locally, basically,
you can
and to
run
test
locally and also deploy them on FutureNet with it.
Yep.
So so this is first step is to install the CLI. As soon as you install this, you can always use the other steps. So you go into because we see here there are different examples. So like, for example, the easiest one, I think it's add, then hello world, and so for example, storage example or things like this. And yes, and then you go into this, let's say, for example, to this folder add, which has the add example. We can also open it. Let's look to it with Visual Studio Code.
VS Code.
VS Code. Okay, open. So you see here we have the out example, and the contract is very simple. It's just this. So as you see here, it cannot compile right now because the SDK is missing. So when you first have to install the SDK, so you copy this and install the SDK. So now we have all the tools. And yes, and now this is also going to compile. So you see the error is gone, and now we can build it. We just take this build command. It's giving some output here. I will explain it later what this is about. And then you can just invoke it like with the Soroban CLI. So we have if we look into this, we have now a build folder here, and here's the WASM file and also the textual representation of it. So you can see how it's what it is about. This you cannot read. So, and now let's have a look to what this or maybe first execute it. So what is it doing? It's just adding two integers and returns the result. So we can invoke it like Soroban. I also prepared this. Let me see here. Okay. So like Soroban invoke this WASM file, I give it the ID 1 and call the function add, which is here in the contract. And I say first argument is 1, second argument is 5, and now the result of this. So it already executed it and gives us
the wow. And so if we take a step back here, can you explain what this little function is doing?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So this is I want to explain. So yeah, so you can also find a description if you go to the example, and there's a description how it works. So the add example, it says how you install it, how you build it, how you start it, and here's our example. As you see, we executed this, and now it goes to the code and it describes what this code is doing, right? So so there are a couple of things that is good to know. So therefore, the first step is to go to the Soroban docs and read a little bit here in these tutorials, because they are very good and they explain a lot of stuff, how it's working, because we have a host environment and a guest environment, and the contract is running in the guest environment.
Got it.
But it communicates with the host environment. And the communication between those environments is very limited. So it's limited to this is described here in CUP 46. It's also linked here. Let me see. So here is, okay. in cup for. So this is very important to look into cup 46, and here it's described so how the both environments are communicating, and they are exchanging only U64s. So and therefore you need to pack everything in the communication in this U64s. So and this is what the SDK. This is one part of what the SDK helps you a lot.
Got it. That communication aspect.
Yeah, because it wraps the values like you can see here is also SDK. Build your own SDK. You see, this is so there are requirements. These value conversions. You have to so you have to convert it to this U64s and transmit them to the host environment. So and this is something the SDK is doing for you. So, and as you can see here, so the host is calling the contract, the function add, and it has 2 arguments and also a return value. And these 2 arguments, they are raw value, so they are just U46.
Okay.
You can see it here. Okay. So and you get the data as in U46, but these U46 are encoded, so they have different tags and they represent different things. And to convert them into for example here into an integer 32, you have to convert this U64 to read what it is, to check what it is, and then to read from it the right bits and convert them into integer 32. This is doing the SDK for you. So you just have to use this function to I32, and then you get the values. And now we have the values here as I32. We can add them, and now with another function, we can convert them back into this U64, which can be transmitted to the host environment.
Got it.
And that's it.
And that prints out 6.
Yes, that prints out 6 because the Soroban CLI prints out the result of what the code is.
Wow. You make it sound so simple.
Yeah. So, exactly. So as you can see, it's super easy. And there are many examples here. So for example, the hello world example, it is using something additional. So we can also, as we can see here, you can go here and then you can go back to the CD word. You just go and copy the install command for the SDK. So it knows all these functions. You can build it now. Okay.
Oh no.
What is here? Maybe. Yeah. It's not. It was not in the right
directory.
Directory, yes. So like this. Now I'm going to build it. Okay, it's done. And now, so let's go to the other example. And now you can just execute it. It's also here. Everything is described. Everything what it does, the code, and what the code does. And now you can just run it. Like for example, this command is invoke it with Soroban CLI, and I say here invoke the function hello and give it the argument friend. So and if you look at this, like this is the function within the contract. It's called hello, and it gets a symbol value. It's also a U64, and it has this small string in it. So this friend string, and it returns a vector object. This is something which is a reference to a host object. The vector lives in the host, and we have here only in a U64 it contains the handle to this object. So what we are doing here is we are creating a vector. So this is something the SDK does for you. So the SDK is if you create a new vector here, a new vector object from the SDK. As you can see, this is from the Soroban SDK. It communicates with the host environment and tells the host environment to create a new vector. It obtains the handle of this new vector and it stores it internally in this new object. So and now you can put something into it like you are used to, like you just say, okay, I want to push into this vector hello,
Right.
and I also push into it the parameter the argument that I get from here, from calling the function. And what we return here is also, as you can see, the host object, get host object. This is the handle to the vector. So so the result is just the pointer to this vector in the host environment.
Got it.
So,
and this is all given in the how like build your own SDK portion, right? On the Soroban docs.
So
like
how you build an SDK, it has different types of or different requirements, let's say, for SDKs, which is also super because now if we build different SDKs, we can agree on a basis. Like listen, every SDK should provide this kind of functionality. And one of the important functionality, the most important is, I think, this value conversions. So you can convert the U64 raw values to different things, to like for, integers or whatever it is, or objects, which are like, for example, this vector was an object. It contains a handle to this object. Symbol is like small strings, and also there are status like void or something like this. And these conversions are very, very important that the SDK covers them because you don't have to repeat this over and over again, and it's you have to parse the bits in the U64 and find the right places, convert them, and so it's a lot of work. So you don't have to do this again and again and again. So you just use the SDK because all the work is in the SDK already. And as you can see here, there's also definition of the host functions linked here, and these are all the host functions that you can use, right? And you can use all these host functions, but like, for example, they are called like x5 or or
M1, right?
And what SDK does is to give you a better, much better understandable interface to communicate with the host with this. So because it gives better names to the functions, and it here you can just send object, but you have to know what kind of objects, and it gives you more functions, like you can, for example, send a string, or you can send integer 32, and you don't have to convert it, and so
it's a better naming convention to understand like the mapping of it.
And also things that are around it, like, for example, you don't have to send raw value, you can send a string or an integer or something like this, and then it converts it automatically into raw value.
Got it.
So you see, for example, with vec new was called here, and it sends back an object which is the handle to the object which is living on the host. And, this happened here with this line, and now the host object is within this vector object, and now we can use it.
Right.
Okay, and if you invoke now, you can just see, like, where was the command? It's also there. I just
you have a note sheet with with all the Soroban commands.
So okay, we just invoke it with the function hello and the argument friend, and you can see, okay, it's returned this vector with these two objects with these two symbols, hello and friend.
Sweet.
And this,
there we go. Ta-da.
And these examples that are here are somehow the same examples as in the Rust SDK. They are not all from the Rust SDK. I'm working on more, but the most basic examples are the same functionality, like they cover the same functionality like in the Rust SDK. And you can see, for example, this authentication thing. You can see the increment, which is also very interesting. This is about storing. So how to store data in the ledger. For example, here we have the SDK provides a ledger script or something like this, where you can call these functions. You can check if there is already data for this counter. If there is data, you can get the object of it. You can convert it to US32 because there's US32 in it. You can increase the counter and then put it back for this key. So it's super easy if you use the SDK to store things in the ledger. Okay.
Very cool. Very cool. So, also, Chris, there's a question here from Area Dev. I believe you're the Expo developer. I could be wrong, but he said, "Hey, Chris, what do you think about what devs from Near have said in the past about not using assembly script because it was not mature enough? Do you feel that claim has changed now?"
So I had no trouble with it until now. So it worked very good. Okay, it's some things are not working, but I'm not sure if this is also something I posted in this Sorobanatron. This is also very good for this kind of stuff because it can improve the development of Soroban. As you can see, for example, here in my post.
Let me pull your stream up. There we go.
So exactly. So let me show you in my post. I have, for example, this problem. I cannot add strings. Okay, this is important for me because if I have a symbol in this U64, I can convert it in. So I can read it as a symbol, but I cannot convert it into strings because I have to read the characters, the single characters, and add them. So I cannot add them right now to make a string again of it. So it is not super necessary because we can still work with the symbols, but it would be nice to have also strings. So, and this is something which is right now not working.
And I think you brought that up, and I think Lee responded to that, correct, Chris?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And we have here, it's super nice because you see immediately, you get immediate response to it, and thinking about what the issues is, what maybe it's kind of issues because the Soroban environment doesn't provide any functions that IS expect for this case. And also he sent me to send an issue here in the Soroban environment, and this helps also to create a better environment so that
it's not only helping you, but it's helping other developers and honestly the Soroban dev team as well. Exactly. Understanding, this is an issue. Let's look at it. Yeah.
Well, now you can find the issue here in Soroban L. Here we're adding strings to assembly script, and it is described, and you can test it also with files and with the description how you can test it, and this helps everybody, I think. But so this is not super necessary. It is something that would be super nice, but but other things. So until now, I found nothing that blocks me from using assembly script SDK. I don't have the feeling that it's not mature enough. It's okay, and you also have to consider that there's a lot of functionality that is implemented in the host. So, and this is very good because it's implemented by the Stellar Developer Foundation. And what you do with your contracts is mostly call some functions that are in the host. So a lot of security issues that were, for example, in the Near SDKs or so, are not there anymore because there are all these functions, as you can see here, all these functions are implemented on the host. So you just have to, for example, big int calculations, all these things are bytes, everything is implemented in the host, and you can just use it. So
Right.
therefore, there's not so much of a problem here,
Right.
I think. So I hope that, but we will see in time. I
Yeah.
mean, until now, it was good enough.
For now, it's good enough. That is the response.
And it's fast and it works good, and
Right.
yeah, so I'm happy with it. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Chris, thank you so much for hopping on here and sharing your SDK, talking about your like entry and journey of being and contributing and making the lives of other Stellar developers awesome by providing your amazing SDKs. So with that, I think I'm going to wrap it up. He said, perfect is good enough. That's cool for me to just use it. So if good enough is, yeah, sweet. So we look forward to submissions from you on
Yeah.
using his SDK to Sorobonathon then, if that's cool. So thank you so much. And we are going to wrap it off for this week, y'all. I will keep y'all posted as I always do in the Discord. My voice totally went out there. As always, you can reach out to Chris, myself, anyone in the Stellar ecosystem via the Discord. And here is a QR code for the Discord if you aren't already in it. But please, and we look forward to seeing y'all next week or the week after, depending on when we have another Soroban Talks. Goodbye, y'all. Have a great rest of your week and weekend. Actually, we're done with the week.